There is a planet in the universe known as the Mother Planet, where technology is extremely advanced. Under the leadership of successive emperors, the people's lives were peaceful and prosperous, until one day, a royal traitor assassinated the king, the queen, and their young daughter. After seizing power, the traitor sent his most brutal commander and army to the vast universe to start a ruthless plunder of resources from other planets. At the same time, he searched for and suppressed any rebels who would not submit to him. In a small village on a remote planet, the people were celebrating the harvest. Here, the technology is relatively backward, and the people are simple and kind. Everyone is immersed in the joy of the harvest, except Kora, whose heart remains unaffected, out of sync with the festive atmosphere. When Kora returned home, her adoptive father advised her to integrate into the village because this is her home. Kora told her adoptive father that everything had already been destined the moment he found her among the wreckage of a spaceship. She was born in a war-torn world, raised amidst conflict, where the concepts of family and love no longer existed. She was taught from a young age that love is a weakness. Kora hated this version of herself, but it was hard for her to change. The next morning, Kora and the villagers were sowing crops and chatting about last night's gathering. Suddenly, a spaceship tore through the fabric of space and appeared in the sky. Having once been a soldier, Kora immediately recognized it as a ship from the Mother Planet. Knowing danger was imminent, she turned and ran into the village, grabbed the large hammer hanging on the wall, and struck the village's alarm bell. The villagers, drawn to the sound of the bell, looked up to see the spaceship in the sky. The village leader quickly gathered the villagers to discuss a strategy, but Gunnar, one of the villagers, was filled with naive fantasies about the ship's arrival. He believed that the advanced technology of the Mother Planet would not harm their backward planet, and that maybe they could trade food for unexpected benefits. As long as they showed enough goodwill, they believed the Mother Planet would not be hostile. Kora, seeing the naive Gunnar, told everyone that the spaceship was extremely dangerous. Its mission was to destroy and enslave. At this point, they had no choice but to meet their demands but not reveal any other information. While they spoke, 3 scout ships swiftly approached the village. After a cloud of dust, a group of people emerged from the ships, led by Commander Atticus, who claimed to be a loyal representative of the Mother Planet. After a false and formal embrace with the village leader, Atticus revealed the true purpose of their visit. Atticus wanted the villagers to provide information about the rebel army and some food supplies. They were willing to buy the food at 3 times the market price. The village leader immediately saw that these people were not as kind-hearted as they appeared. He told Atticus that they didn't have extra food supplies. When they reached the council hall, an unexpected event occurred. Gunnar, overwhelmed by the promise of 3 times the price, stood up and said the village still had some food to offer Atticus. The village leader immediately told Atticus that Gunnar had no right to speak. With that, the atmosphere in the room grew tense. Atticus then took a black staff from one of his subordinates, slowly walked up to Gunnar, and struck the village leader on the head. He brutally killed the village leader, and his wife, seeing the horrendous fate of her husband, cried in despair as she rushed to his side, only to meet the same tragic end at Atticus's hands. At this moment, Atticus revealed his true, wolf-like nature. He told the villagers that in 10 weeks, he would return to collect all the food. If they failed to comply, he would wipe them out completely. He then left 12 soldiers stationed in the village. Atticus returned to the spaceship, accompanied by a robot named JC-1435, who possessed human-level intelligence. Eris, the officer, explained to the captain that JC-1435 had originally served the late king as a loyal war machine. However, after the king's death, JC-1435 chose to permanently lay down its weapons and no longer participated in any combat. Now, it only helped soldiers with manual labor. To confirm this story, Eris pulled the trigger on JC-1435. As JC-1435 collapsed to the ground, Eris didn't stop there but fired 2 more shots. JC-1435 did not retaliate in any way. The captain did not scold Eris. Instead, he silently looked at JC-1435 and told him to wash off the dirt by the river. By the river, JC-1435 washed off the dirt and sat on a stone slab, looking at the sunset, lost in thought. At that moment, a towel was handed to him by Sam, who had happened to pass by. She felt that this robot was different from the other killing machines and even better than some human beings. JC-1435 sensed Sam's kindness, which reminded him of Princess Issa, the late king's daughter. In JC-1435's eyes, Princess Issa was so kind, beautiful, and compassionate. He had once sworn with his own iron will to fight forever in her name because he believed Princess Issa would usher in an era of peace and love. But on the day of Princess Issa's coronation, the king, queen, and princess were all assassinated by their most trusted people. Since then, JC-1435 had feared that his inner kindness and compassion disappeared along with the princess. So, he chose to lay down his weapons and no longer participate in any battles. Sam placed a flower crown she had woven on JC-1435's head, and in that instant, JC-1435's frozen heart seemed to melt. In the council hall, the villagers blamed Gunnar for causing the deaths of the village leader and his wife. Not only had he failed to sell the food, but he had also brought death upon them. At this point, a villager stood up and suggested they grow more food to prove their worth to Atticus, hoping he would spare them. This idea quickly gained unanimous support from the villagers, who thought that if they could grow more food, Atticus might leave some for the people. Kora, hearing the villagers' arguments, realized they still didn't understand the situation. She went back home and began to prepare to flee. Her adoptive father guessed her intentions and returned to the house to persuade Kora to do something for the village, as now was the time they needed her. But Kora, already tired of the pain caused by war, only wanted to escape and didn't want to resist. Atticus's hands were once again stained with the blood of the villagers. That night, Eris and two soldiers, with ill intentions, saw Sam drawing water and threw her into the barracks. Just then, Kora arrived in time, and when the soldiers raised their guns toward her, Kora reluctantly handed over her axe. But in the next second, Kora suddenly struck, knocking the soldier's gun away and avoiding the shot aimed at her head. In the blink of an eye, Kora struck the soldier's throat with her axe, then picked up another weapon from the ground and quickly dealt with several more soldiers. Kora fought like a mother lion, extremely fierce. The soldiers inside the barracks were no match for her, leaving only the captain. The captain held a gun to Sam's head, and Kora knew she couldn't act recklessly. Just then, JC-1435 heard the commotion and rushed in. When the captain saw JC-1435, he ordered him to kill Kora. JC-1435 slowly picked up the gun from the ground. Looking at the captain, this was the first time JC-1435 had picked up a weapon since the death of the former king. The captain's downfall was swift and simple. Everything happened too suddenly. Kora stared at JC-1435 in disbelief. JC-1435 dropped the gun in his hand, looking flustered, and hurriedly ran out of the barracks. The villagers, drawn by the noise, quickly gathered around. Kora walked up to the soldier and decisively pulled the trigger in front of them. The next day, Kora planned to gather some rebels who were opposed to the mother planet to confront Atticus. Gunnar volunteered, saying that he had sold some supplies to the rebels recently, and their informant was currently in the city. He could take Kora there. It would take 2 days to reach the city, and the two rested along the way at night. Gunnar was surprised at how much Kora knew about Atticus. Kora shared her story. Belisarius first entered the planet Kora was on when she was just 9 years old. He made no demands and brought only brutal slaughter. The natives organized a courageous defense to resist Belisarius, but this only fueled his bloodlust, and he began to kill the innocent, sparing no unarmed civilians. When Belisarius found Kora, he didn't kill her immediately. Instead, he made Kora hold a gun to her own head. Furious, Kora pulled the trigger without hesitation, but nothing happened. Belisarius had known the gun was empty. He slaughtered Kora's family but spared her, recognizing the potential for killing within her. After being taken to the mother planet, Kora was trained and learned the planet's history. She lived alongside the soldiers for 5 years, during which time she became merciless, with only death and destruction in her heart. The endless wars gradually drove Kora into madness, and it was because of this that Belisarius recognized her potential. Kora told the puzzled Gunnar that she was certain Atticus would destroy the planet because it was exactly what she had done before. The next day, in front of a bar in the city, a man was dragged out by a bounty hunter working for Belisarius. Gunnar realized that the man was an informant for the rebels. To avoid exposure, Kora had no choice but to take a chance and enter the bar. The appearance of Kora and Gunnar, two unfamiliar faces, instantly drew everyone's attention. Various species cast curious glances at them. The two calmly approached the bar and ordered drinks, planning how to gather information on the rebels without revealing their identities. Just then, a pig-headed creature took an interest in the simple Gunnar, wanting Kora to give him a break. When Gunnar rejected the creature's offer, it suddenly attacked him in the groin, delivering a blow that twisted Gunnar's face in pain. Kora pushed the pig-headed creature's hand away but was immediately threatened in return. Before the creature could finish speaking, Kora swiftly took the knife from its hand, slammed its head onto the bar, and drove the blade in front of its face. The pig-headed creature slinked away from the bar, and the patrons, used to such things, showed no surprise. Kora, thinking she had already caught everyone's attention, decided to cut to the chase and asked if anyone knew anything about the rebels. One person, who was diluting alien toxin, said he had seen someone on the planet Borax who used to be a general for the former king. After the king's death, he spent his years in the Borax arena, living off duels. Just as Kora and Gunnar were about to head to Borax, the pig-headed creature returned to the bar with reinforcements, ready to get revenge. The pig-headed creature completely underestimated Kora. Gunnar felt uneasy. With a command from the creature, its underlings began shooting. Kora remained calm, raised her weapon, and pulled the trigger. The attackers didn't expect Kora's reaction to be so swift. For her, it was nothing but small fry. With a quick motion, she took down two enemies. Furious, the pig-headed creature charged. Kora knocked it down and swiftly kicked it in the face. She then dealt with the last enemy before a mysterious figure, who had remained quiet until now, pulled out a gun and aimed it at Kora. Pulling the trigger, it turned out that the pig-headed creature had sneaked up behind Kora and aimed a gun at her. The mysterious figure had saved her at the last second. After the pig-headed creature fell, the mysterious figure explained that he meant no harm and began looting the creature's gold. This mysterious figure introduced himself as Kai, a thief with a conscience. When he heard that Kora was going to Borax, he offered to help. He had a cargo ship. Kora decided to trust him, given that he had saved her life. The group boarded the ship. Kai said that before going to Borax, they would first stop at Wodi, where the head of a major alliance had a man Kora would be interested in meeting. After several days of travel, they successfully landed at Wodi and met the farm owner to explain their purpose. When Kora met Tyrant, he was chained up by the farm owner, hammering iron. Kora told him she was planning to fight against the mother planet and hoped he would join her. Tyrant, who had no love for Belisarius's tyranny, agreed, but explained that he was deeply in debt and couldn't escape. The farm owner, after hearing the story, suggested that if Tyrant couldn't pay his debts, he could settle them with a bet. If Tyrant could tame the wild beast outside, the debts would be forgiven. If Tyrant lost, Kora and Gunnar would become the farm owner's slaves. Kora looked at the raging beast, which no less than 4 men could restrain, and asked Tyrant if he could tame it. Tyrant confidently responded that he could. Approaching the beast cautiously, Tyrant believed it was no ordinary animal but one with its own intelligence. He asked everyone to loosen the ropes holding the beast and knelt before it, hoping to show that he meant no harm and that they were all equals. As he approached the beast, he spoke of his own struggles, hoping to connect with it. As expected, the monstrous bird understood his goodwill and slowly calmed down. Then, Tyrant removed the chain from the bird's neck and climbed onto its back. Just as Tyrant was tying a rope around the bird's mouth, the bird soared into the air, proud and unwilling to be easily tamed. The bird flew between the strange mountain peaks, trying to shake off Tyrant, but when it realized it wasn't working, it slammed its body against a nearby cliff. However, Tyrant, sitting firmly on the bird's back, remained steady. Suddenly, the bird had an idea and charged straight toward the cliff. Seeing this, Tyrant scrambled up and chased after it. When he reached the edge of a precipice, he took a leap and landed perfectly on the bird's back. Perhaps it was Tyrant's reckless behavior that finally won the bird over. The man and the bird soared together in the free sky. When Tyrant returned victorious, Kora couldn't hide her joy. Tyrant had won the bet with the farm owner and regained his freedom. Next, Kai led them to Dagos, a planet rich in mineral resources. After years of overexploitation by the mother planet, the entire world was covered in a thick haze of smoke. The native creatures' living space had been greatly reduced. Meanwhile, in an underground mine, a spider-bodied native creature was holding a child in her arms, negotiating with a woman. The reason the spider-woman had taken the human child was because this had once been her home. Due to human overexploitation, toxic gases had filled the entire world, harming the spider-woman's body. This caused her eggs to become fragile, and none of her children could hatch. Nemesis understood the Spider-Woman's pain but didn't have a good solution. Not wanting to continue a fruitless argument, the Spider-Woman attacked Nemesis. Nemesis skillfully dodged the Spider-Woman's attacks and drew out twin daggers, preparing to retaliate. She slashed at the Spider-Woman, who blocked the attack and pulled away. Then, the Spider-Woman leapt high into the air and landed, her 8 legs and a spear making it difficult for Nemesis to keep up. Eventually, Nemesis was knocked away, crashing into the wall. Realizing that normal attacks wouldn't work, Nemesis infused her daggers with magic and prepared to fight the Spider-Woman to the death. The daggers, glowing red from the intense heat, sparked as they scraped against the ground. The Spider-Woman was not intimidated. She tilted her head back and charged at Nemesis. Seizing the moment, Nemesis slid under the Spider-Woman and swiftly slashed her twin daggers across her rear. leaving 2 deep cuts. Turning back, Nemesis stabbed the daggers into the Spider-Woman's abdomen. After defeating the Spider-Woman, Nemesis didn't feel victorious. As a fellow woman, she understood the pain of losing a child. Their battle was simply due to differing positions. It was an unavoidable conflict because war has no clear right or wrong. Nemesis was exactly the kind of ally Kora had been looking for. After gathering several unique individuals, the group arrived at the dueling arena on Pollux. At that moment, Titus, the former general of the late king, was lying drunkenly in an alley. Gunnar and Tarak helped him up, and Titus instantly glared at them with murderous intent. They took him to the arena's bathhouse and had the attendants clean him up. Kora, having heard of Titus's reputation from Belisarius, got straight to the point and told him her plan. She wanted Titus to join them in resisting the tyranny of the mother planet. However, Titus was unmoved. When Belisarius seized power, all of Titus's subordinates had been sacrificed in the war. Since then, Titus had lived in seclusion on this planet, spending his days in a stupor, wanting nothing more than to quietly live out his remaining years. Kora looked at the hopeless Titus and said, "Even if you're willing to be a coward, do you want your fallen brothers to be remembered as cowards?" At these words, Titus was immediately enraged. He could tolerate insults to himself, but he would never allow anyone to dishonor his fallen brothers. Provoked by Kora's challenge, Titus decided to join the others in resisting the oppression of the mother planet. Meanwhile, the rebel spy was taken aboard Atticus's warship. Atticus, with a blank expression, asked the spy for the location of the rebels' hideout, promising freedom if the spy told the truth. To save his life, the spy revealed that the rebel leader was hiding on Shaolon and that the Shaolon king was providing them with support. Atticus, always bloodthirsty, did not keep his promise. Instead, he pierced the spy's central nervous system with a weapon and ordered his subordinates to dissect his brain for useful information. He then prepared to head to Shaolon to capture the rebels. Meanwhile, Kora's group arrived on Shaolon, where the kind Shaolon king welcomed them. Upon hearing of their purpose, the Shaolon king informed them that Darien was on his way and would soon arrive. Soon, a large number of small warships appeared in the sky. These were the ships led by Darien. After meeting, Kora shared her plan, but Darien's sister didn't want to join the battle. She explained that the recent small victories of the rebels were due to clever strategies and good fortune, and she believed that charging into a direct confrontation with the mother planet would be disastrous for their forces. Kora found her words laughable. According to her, the rebels had simply used promises of a bright future to deceive brave warriors, all for their own selfish interests. Hearing Kora's criticism, Darien was moved. He understood his sister's good intentions, as every soldier in their army was a brave warrior, and his sister didn't want them to die in vain. But Darien told his sister that they must never forget their original purpose. The reason they formed the rebel army was to overthrow the tyranny of the mother planet and create a new social order. The sister could only agree to her brother's decision upon hearing Darien's words. Darien also knew that this battle would likely end in disaster. He told the soldiers the truth and selected some brave veterans who were not afraid of sacrifice. He said goodbye to his sister, urging her to leave Sharon Star as soon as possible and head to another base. Kora and the others set off once again with Darien leading the rebellion. Kai said that before they could engage Atticus, his ship had one last batch of goods to deliver to a buyer. This would allow him to fully shed his identity as a thief and join the rebellion without any guilt. Kora didn't object to this. After all, Kai had saved her life, and along the way, he had been a great help to her. Meanwhile, the Sharon king was on his knees, praying in agony. It turned out that just as Kora had left, Atticus arrived at Sharon and questioned the king about why he had chosen to support the rebels. The Sharon king tearfully explained that their civilization had survived for over 10,000 years precisely because they valued honor and kindness above all else. Atticus, however, dismissed the king's words with disdain, playing with the scepter in his hand. In his eyes, only power and war were eternal. He then swung the scepter across the Sharon king's face. Without a trace of mercy, he ordered the destruction of Sharon Star. Meanwhile, Kora and the others arrived at Dewa Star, preparing to complete their final transaction. They unloaded the iron crates that Kai was about to trade. Darien directed his men to be on high alert. Everything was going according to plan. However, Kora had an unsettling feeling deep in her heart. She watched Kai talking to the bounty hunter, and the chill down her spine grew stronger. The next moment, fierce artillery fire struck Darien's small warship. As expected, the attacker was none other than Atticus's warship. Immediately after, the iron crate that had been unloaded from the cargo ship suddenly transformed into a robot, binding Kora tightly. The sudden turn of events left everyone unable to react in time. They were all quickly restrained by the transforming robots, unable to move. At this moment, Kai finally revealed his true colors. It turned out that Kai had always wanted to capture the rebels and exchange them for a large bounty from Atticus, but he couldn't accomplish this alone. When he overheard Kora talking about resisting Atticus in the bar, he unknowingly set a trap. He had orchestrated everything, step by step, leading Kora and the rebels into the abyss. Atticus came in front of Kora, very pleased with Kai's performance. He then realized with surprise that Kora was the young girl that King Shing had personally cultivated years ago. He had already anticipated that if he brought Kora back to the homeworld, he would receive great rewards from Belisarius. Becoming a hero of the kingdom, he also took out a device that could sever neural connections and handed it to Gunnar, promising that if Gunnar followed his orders, he would be allowed to live and return home. Kai told Gunnar to simply insert the device into the machine and pull the trigger. Under Kai's pressure, Gunnar slowly inserted the device into the machine. Gunnar struggled, unable to act, and just as Kai was about to watch the scene unfold, Gunnar suddenly pulled the device out of the machine and pointed it at Kai's head. Pulling the trigger, with the device removed, Kora regained her freedom. She grabbed a rifle, dodged all of Atticus's attacks, and shot the fuel barrel. An explosion lit up the sky as Atticus was knocked to the ground by the blast shockwave. In the chaos, Gunnar freed Nemesis, and with Nemesis's help, everyone regained their freedom. They quickly joined the battle. In the sky, the homeworld's warships detected the sudden situation below and quickly suppressed the area with heavy fire. The bombardment rained down relentlessly, and the rebels had no means of defending themselves. The small warships were quickly destroyed. The rebels watched in heartbreak as their ships were torn apart by the enemy's heavy firepower. Without hesitation, Darian grabbed a spear from the ground, ran to the high ground, and charged toward Atticus's warship. Reaching the highest point, he raised the spear toward the warship's cockpit and jumped, sacrificing his life to take out the warship's pilot. With his last strength, he changed the warship's flight path. The massive ship collided with a floating dock. Meanwhile, Kora found Atticus. Without a word, Atticus swung his scepter at Kora. Kora grabbed a broken rope from the ground and fought back. Like a crazed lioness, Kora unleashed her pent-up pain and fury, attacking Atticus mercilessly. With her sweeping punches, Atticus could no longer resist. Kora picked up the scepter from the ground and drove it mercilessly into Atticus's chest. Finally, Atticus was defeated by the battle-hardened Kora, but there was no fear in his eyes, only a look of twisted enjoyment. Looking at Atticus, Kora dealt him the final blow. After Atticus's defeat, the group followed Kora back to their homeland. Gunnar found the scenery of his hometown incredibly beautiful. As they made their way to the village under the sunset, JC-1435 also became a member of the village, taking on the duty of protecting it. Meanwhile, Atticus was brought back to the homeworld. It turned out that he had already been transformed into a half-human, half-machine monster. Technicians linked his nervous system to a device and transmitted it to Belisarius. In the homeworld's time-space realm, Belisarius stood with his back to Atticus. He was deeply dissatisfied with Atticus's mission and ordered him to quickly eliminate the rebels and capture Kora alive. Before Atticus could say anything, Belisarius sent him back to reality. I'm a movie enthusiast. Please subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.